One thing that I'm kind of struck by is how comfortable you are talking about sex and sexuality.
I've been in the sex industry for basically my entire adult life. I started off as a stripper, exotic dancer at 22. I love it because it's the truth and it's how we got here, and it's our source of power and our source of creativity, and just connecting with sexuality and sexual energy, and it's empowering in my opinion.
Welcome to a Thoughts and Feelings podcast. I'm Evan, and I'm here with a longtime friend, Lana. And today we are talking about sexuality and the potential ability for sexuality to be healing on the collective. So, without further ado, for this dialogue, Lana, it'd be helpful to introduce yourself. Talk a little bit about just your background and how you grew up, and then how sexuality became an interesting topic, and then we'll see what we explore from there.
My background. How far back do we want to go?
You got a childhood and where you were raised, and anything that feels impactful in shaping who you are.
Well, when I was born, no, I'm just kidding. I come from a really liberal family, and I think that's really supported the direction that I've gone in. And I guess a good thing to mention is one noteworthy detail. My grandfather, he's passed, but he was the president of the American Cannabis Society. So freedom fighting, to free the herb, and we'd always have clouds of cannabis layering the house. And
Wow.
so liberal in that sense, that there was freedom to explore, and cognitive liberty was part of our practice, and using plant medicines and psychedelics and alternative therapies. And my mother was an herbalist, and we've never really lived in the box, so to speak. And everyone in my family is pretty openly sensual and sexual, and a good example of that would just be like really enjoying food and moaning while you eat, and just savoring every bite, that sort of thing. And just very expressive Italian, Sicilian people who are just passionate. So I feel like that's been the foundation, and I'm blessed in that way.
That's it's fascinating. It's such a different household from the one that I grew up in, which was just much more conservative. I mean, when I would if a girl was like showing that she was interested in me when I was like 5 or 6, or even older when I was a teenager, my mom would be like, "Ooh, that's dirty," and she would like make comments like that anything having to do, even implying sexuality, was dirty. And I was just super embarrassed by that, of course, at the time, but it implanted certain views that sex was something not to be talked about, and that was so personal that it was almost like Christian. We're a Jewish family, but it almost felt like a Christian type of ethic, where you save yourself for marriage type of thing. And I also think this was a little bit part of the area where I grew up, where, there were people like having sex at younger ages and stuff, but not that many, and nothing like what seems to be the case nowadays. I'm not sure what's going on nowadays amongst younger people, but certainly talking about sex more openly and stuff, that was not done in my town where I grew up, or generally in Long Island, New York, in the 80s and early 90s. It was, it was like shocking when MTV came out, and you would see more skin and stuff like that. So we come from such different backgrounds in that sense. And it sounds like you feel like your background was quite healthy. I mean, do you feel like more people should be able to be really open as far as sensuality, which you're distinguishing from sexuality, and sexuality, just to be clear? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. How who doesn't want to, going back to that example, really enjoy their food and just embrace it and have this sensual experience with it and fully tune into all of the flavors. And yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, you know a little bit about this. You knew about my sensual foodist life. So
Yes.
uh, that is the best example that I can think of that everyone can connect to. And then when we go deeper into it and actually experiencing pleasure in a more sexual way, yes, that too. When we're not fully expressed there, I don't think we're fully expressed in life as a whole.
Hmm.
It's the
True.
microcosm.
Right. That makes sense. I guess I often think, and tell me if you agree with this. I think of sex as being on the spectrum of communication, where if you are comfortable communicating in a much more intimate way, understanding someone's movements and the way their breath works, and what really matters to them, what subconsciously bothers them, their boundaries, then you will have an easier time in a sexual context with them. If you're attuned to them, then sex almost follows naturally. Um, does that read right to you with your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd have to agree with all of that. There's always more. We're always just scratching the surface
Mhm.
of what sexuality is and sexual connection and dynamics between partners. There's so much there. It's infinitely deep, in my opinion.
Hmm. Um, I'm curious, what are some examples of like what you would say is not the way sex should operate? Do you see examples in society where you're just like, that is not sex being used or thought about properly?
Yeah, pretty much all of it. That's mainstream.
Oh,
Like porn. Yeah,
what's wrong with porn?
pretty much all of porn. It's not holding that powerful act in high regard. Uh, it's sport fucking is what I call it, just to be really blatant. And I don't know. There's no magic in it, and sex really is magical. You can create magic. You can create life. We do create life. That's how we got here. And
Hmm.
I don't believe that the way sex is portrayed in most porn is really giving us that, oh wow, this is such a powerful sacred thing that we're doing and we're creating magic. I
Hmm.
don't know about you, but I don't feel that when I see the typical Pornhub video.
Hmm. Hmm. I see. So I'm trying to think of what the right way would be to describe what they're doing there. It's like they're getting to the point quickly, kind of thing. And um,
They're
maybe
getting to some point quickly, but what point is that is
I
the
see.
question. It's like, how many times can we have a crotch sneeze before we realize it's not that fulfilling?
Hmm. I see. Um, yeah, that's one way to put it. Um, I'm I'm reminded of something that I believe you brought up at one point since I've known you, which is it has to do with like orgasm. And there's like the, oh, let's have sex so that we can come, and then there's like a different type of sex. And I feel like you I'd heard of this concept, but it seemed like you really like believed in this and lived it. Do you know what I mean? Or can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects. I'm curious what specifically, um,
What I
what
mean?
specific part of it you want to dive into.
Oh, okay. So I think um, a lot of people are having sex largely because they're like excited about the moment of coming,
Yeah.
and it seems like you have a different view on, like, coming can be something that you wait for. That was the conversation that I found interesting. And I think on a very basic level, most people like immediately get that concept that there's pleasure in like the act and it's not just the goal. But it seems like you have a way of taking that further and thinking about really drawing it out.
Absolutely. All right, we can
Do you want to
definitely
elaborate
go
more? I don't
there.
know if I'm just beginning to describe like
No, it's fantastic. I think you got it.
okay.
Run with it. It's really good. Yeah. I one thing is, if we go down this belief system, this it's actually a way of life, and that's tantra, which is a whole entire, like I'm saying, it's a way of life, and it's something that the tantric arts are something that I've been practicing for over a decade, and was in a pretty exclusive committed relationship for almost that entire time. So we were able to really go deep because we kept going layers and layers just with each other. And that's one benefit of actually being in a relationship with just one person, a partnership. We both live in California. We know there's this whole idea of open relationships and polyamory and all of that, and which is another beautiful thing. However, I believe that my experience and level of understanding with these tantric arts and these practices um, were profound in the way that they were because I was able to go deep with one person
Hmm.
and just keep going, through the layers. We didn't have to start at base one, just like, all right, we've gotten there, let's go back there and just go another level deeper. And it's not necessarily the goal, but in tantric lovemaking, the experience, the transcendent experience is you're making love to God, and you're experiencing God and source through uniting with your partner, through merging with your partner. And for me, that is so much more compelling than an orgasm. Even though I enjoy that and I enjoy having a partner experience that as well, uh, it's just not my end goal.
Hmm.
And I think when many people I know and many people that I've worked with, when they're introduced to this practice, it just doesn't excite people anymore as much. Just, okay, let's have the orgasm and then it's over.
Hmm.
No, there's like a whole dance with that energy and that orgasmic energy, that nectar arriving. It's like this beautiful journey, and I rather just dance in it and play until, you know, until forever instead of it ending.
Wow. So I guess what I'm just trying to understand this as much because I live in a different world and from you in terms of what you think about, and that's one of the things I just so appreciate about you, and I like to learn from conversations like this. So these are, I mean, I guess my main question hearing that, because it sounds so great, is is the kind of act of not letting it happen yet and waiting, and the anticipation and the desire, that the heightened desire that comes along with that being stretched out over hours, maybe days. Does that interact with maybe more spiritual aspects of being really close and in intimate connection with your partner? And then something happens from those elements combining?
That was a big question, Evan.
Well, basically, I'm asking if the combination of the anticipation of orgasm, which could last super long time, and being really close to your partner and sort of playing with each other, if that is the big thing that's happening, I guess, yeah, let me leave it there.
Yeah, to an extent. There are a lot of practices that you can focus on, and one of them is circulating that orgasmic energy. Instead of that external release, you can have more of an internal orgasm and circulate it through the body and have more of a full body orgasm. Or I don't know, some people, I've like to call it like a cosmic orgasm. So that's just one practice. And there's many. It's endless. And especially between two people, like I was saying, when you go layers and layers deep with one person, you find your own practices, and you find your own way of dancing and exploring that energy.
That makes sense and is beautiful. I'm curious what your thoughts are on being, so you were in was it a 10-year relationship, you said?
11, yeah.
11.
10.
Okay. So you're in an 11-year relationship. um, what a lot of people say is like when you're married or you're in a really long-term relationship, then it's easier to lose interest. You're used to that person. It's hard to find stuff that feels adventurous. Do you see that as a problem that people are just bound to run into, or do you think people are just not thinking about it the right way when they say something maybe limiting like that?
I think there you go. Yeah, it is limiting. You said it.
Mhm.
It's just lack of resourcefulness. We have every piece of information available to us, at our fingertips, right? We know that we have the internet, we have all the education in the world. So find the practices. There are so many different ways to enjoy a partnership and a lover, and things you've probably never even thought to explore or experience. Though you have to look. If we're stuck in the mainstream model and the old paradigm, yeah, we're gonna get bored, because it's boring. Just the way that we navigate in terms of what's mainstream it's pretty boring. So yeah, things like tantra. There are many other practices. It's not the only one. There are many ways to ignite that fire, that passion, that connection between two people, even after 10, 20, 30 years. I quote him a lot because I've been to so many events, but I I've heard over and over going to Tony Robbins seminars, this story about this older couple that was in the front row of one of his seminars, and they were super affectionate and kissing and touching the whole time. And he asked them, how long they'd been together and what their secret was and all of this. And they had been together like decades. And they said something like, we're trying new things. And there are endless new things to try.
Yeah, that makes sense. For some reason, when I'm reading a lot of, as I'm hearing you talk, I'm reading a lot of it as presence. This is something I think of as one of the biggest goals of my life, is simply to be more present. There's so many blessings and good things in my life, and it's easy to always think about what's next and be anxious about what I'm concerned will interrupt me on my path to my goals. There's something good about that. Of course, it's helped me achieve success in business, but there is the downside of not being present enough. And you could be present, just on your own taking a walk, and you can be present, in a friendship. And it seems like what you're talking about, at least so far, is bringing presence into an intimate relationship where you can explore kind of the pleasures and the good things that are available to us because of the way our bodies are, and because of the excitement of human relationship when you can be honest and intimate. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. That's how I'm reading what you're saying. Yes. Okay. Um,
That was
uh,
good. That was really good.
that was good. Okay. Good. 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 I just like to make sure I understand it properly. Um, I mean, one thing that I'm kind of struck by is how comfortable you are talking about sex and sexuality and stuff like that. And is it just the way you were raised that allowed you to be like that? I feel like a lot of people would like to be able to be that comfortable.
Yeah, I definitely should mention we went into childhood stuff. I went into childhood stuff. But in my adult life, I've been in the sex industry for basically my entire adult life. I started off as a stripper, exotic dancer at 22, 21, 22, and um, it's been over a decade now. And I was in Vegas a week ago just for fun for a night. It's not something that I need anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and yet I just really, really enjoy it. So being in that environment and then also doing some work as a dominatrix and a webcam model and all kinds of things in the sex industry, actually. Um, I'm just steeped in it, and I love it because it's the truth, and it's how we got here, and it's our source of power and our source of creativity, and just connecting with sexuality and sexual energy, and it's empowering, in my opinion.
Wow. See, I'm so interested in that. That's a very like positive view of something that I feel like if you ask the average person, like, oh, what would it be like to strip? There would be the sense of like, oh, it's these horny guys. They're going to be disrespect. Like, it's already like an interesting situation you're in, but it's super easy for them to be creepy or disrespectful. Is that not your experience?
Yeah, and the power that I have, that we have as sex workers, is to transform that by, just teaching people how to treat you
Hmm.
one person at a time. And there's a ripple effect. And then also holding yourself in integrity. And this is, strip clubs are just the microcosm. The same thing is happening everywhere else in the world.
Hmm.
It's just watered down. I mean, a guy walking by, my friend and I were joking about this the other day doing a photo shoot. We were out just hiking and a guy walked by and we were talking about the same exact thing that you just said.
Mhm.
And the photographer said, yeah, well, that guy might have been thinking the same thing as the guy that you walked by at the strip club and, is taking you back in the VIP. Like, it's not any different. We're just not thinking about it in the same way when we're out in the world.
Hmm. Right. So in the strip club, people are going to be like more upfront about it, and like that's what they're there to engage in. So they're going to say everything that's on their mind. But if someone has like sexual feelings or feelings of wanting to dominate or whatever they have in their mind, that may be happening anyway. You're saying this is a place where the honesty is bared, and it's like in a sense there's a bearing on the side of the dancer and then a bearing on the side of the patron who's just like bringing to you things that maybe he wouldn't say anywhere but there.
Yeah, exactly. And why is it okay to be fully expressed and say all of those things? And allow our shadow selves to be seen because we're in the dark and, numbed by alcohol. And I really love this idea of just turning the strip club inside out, because there's no reason why all of that needs to be repressed and shoved into a dark corner at 2 a.m. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, turn the lights on and take it outside, because it's real. It's happening. It's not something that's just in the dark at night. It's happening all day. We just feel okay in that space. And that's because there's been so much repression and shame and fear around sexuality, which is silly to me. It's how we got here.
Right. Huh. I've never heard of turn a strip club inside out, but it actually makes a ton of sense, and it's really interesting. I've never thought of that before. But you're right. I mean, there's something about how
Do it.
do it. It's so secretive what's happening in there to people. It's so personal. I mean, it's like we kind of, at a certain age, like nobody would be surprised by the types of things that are being said and the fantasies that are being played out. But we really are just like, that's their personal stuff. And it's like one of the last things we talk about openly. When I say we, I just mean anyone that I would meet in most contexts. Like, when do you even get there? How many decades into a relationship do you need to get with the average person that I know, at least, before you would talk about like your sexual fantasies or the things that are perverse about what you want or fantasize about? I have a sort of dumb, simple question for you. You spend a lot of time in the realm of sexuality. Do you simply like sex more than other people, or is it something else?
I might.
You said you might?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have found just the path I'm on in life, especially through the experiences with plant medicines and psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
Those experiences have revealed a lot to me. And one thing that's very, very clear is that I'm extremely sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes, you know, it's in every single way, like physically, emotionally, whatever, what have you. I'm more sensitive than a lot of people that I know. And uh, I guess it's why my brand right now, it's the pure way.
Mm-hmm.
After all the paths I've been walking on, the pure way seems the most fitting and the one that'll stick maybe forever, because I really believe in a lifestyle that is a practice of purity, just, constantly paying attention to what I put in, on, and around my body, to keep this channel clear so that when something comes in, I can fully experience it.
Hmm.
And that also goes for sex and sensuality. Just I want to fully experience life. Otherwise, I don't understand why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be really sensitive. I am really sensitive, but I also want that. So I want to keep it that way. I don't want to numb myself out. This is why I don't drink alcohol, for example. I don't want to be numbed. I want to fully feel everything as much as I possibly can on the deepest level that I possibly can.
Wow. That's so interesting.
Makes sense.
I'm contrasting what you're saying with what I feel like the messaging was when I was a kid, which is that like sex is dirty. And it would almost like lead to the idea that somebody as involved in the sex industry and in sexuality, there'd be something dirty about them or about that. And yet, in so many ways, you are one of the more pure and clean people. And I say that because of what you put in your body. Like, in the time that I've known you, many years, you have taught me so much about how to eat in a healthy way beyond the healthy stuff that I thought I knew already. I was like, oh, I know what healthy eating. It's like vegetables. No, there's there's a different level, and that's what you have always practiced. And yeah, you obviously like maintain and respect your body a lot. It's just such a different message than what I would have expected when I was a kid, about somebody that is in the sex industry. So it just shows that your perspective on it, the way you go into it, is completely different than at least I would have expected. There is a view of sexuality that is pure, and I think with your brand, The Pure Way, that's kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. Honored that I could teach you something about eating pure or
Yeah.
living pure. And that is, it's really my mission. It is, because I am blessed in a way. Like, I believe I am blessed by this level of pleasure that I can experience. And I think everybody can get to that point, and some won't, because they will never know what it feels like before they get there. You know, it's this like, okay, I don't know how good that is to eat that way and live that way. I don't know how good I can feel. And they don't ever start doing it because they don't know what it feels like. It's like this vicious cycle of like not getting there because you don't know how good it can be.
Hmm.
But if you just kind of dip your toe in the water, go a little bit further and go a little bit further, and all of a sudden you're in the deep end, you realize it's really good in there and you can stay. So you keep up with the practices and, you know, just living your life that way because it feels really good. And in some ways it's a blessing and a curse because you feel everything more. I feel pain more deeply too. So it's not just the pleasure, but I'll take it. I'll take the more intense pain because I get the better, you know, the more elevated pleasure.
Right. Yeah. The spectrum is fuller, and that's worth it for you. It seems like you're really happy with where you're at with your level of sensitivity. There's something I'm thinking about that I'm just sort of formulating now, which is, I wonder about people being able to engage at the level you do that look all kinds of ways. I wonder how much you think, you know, the fact that you like were not born ugly or like unable to keep your body, you know, thin. There are some people that are just born, you know, bigger boned or heavier or whatever. I wonder what your attitude is about that, and what it has taught you, if there's been a disadvantage, if it's been an advantage.
Yeah, something to think about.
Tough question. I know. I'm like asking you about something that's like it's like a natural part of you. But I think about that. I'll put it another way. People bring up the subject sometimes of like, well, people aren't going to stay beautiful forever. And as you get older, your body changes. What's your view on that, both personally, and then what would you say to a client that you're working with in your sexuality coaching, who's concerned that maybe they're in their 40s or 50s or whatever it is, and they feel like beauty isn't the same as it was when they were, you know, 20s or something?
Well, first off, I don't believe in age.
Okay.
I don't believe in chronological age. I believe in biological age. And this isn't something I formulated. I follow this incredible woman. Her name is Christiane Northrup, and she works in the realm of women's health, reproductive health. She was an OBGYN years and years ago, and now she's just this thought leader in so many ways. And she has a book called Goddesses Never Age. And what I would say to that is let the master speak on that. So read Goddesses Never Age. For everyone, not just women, men too. It's just a whole, like, flip everything on its head, shift the paradigm. Because we're just looking at aging all wrong, like we have been forever. It's ridiculous. Yeah, and I know so many people that are younger now than they were 10, even 20 years ago.
Huh. I love that idea. What a wonderful idea.
Reverse aging. It's a thing.
So I guess I can assume then that you don't feel afraid about how your life will be if your body isn't allowing you the same level of like comfort or flexibility or whatever 20 years from now or something like that. That's not really something you're concerned with.
Not even a little bit, because I seek out examples, and I actually have some that are in my immediate family. I'm so fortunate. My uncle is one of my mentors, and he was like on the verge of becoming a Calvin Klein model at over 60 years old.
Oh, wow.
Just in his underwear, like ripped and tan and just full of vitality and youth and like 60, whatever. Okay, yeah. Maybe slow down a little bit, or 90, but things are changing. 120. I'm not so worried. And I believe that there's a gift in every phase of life, and whatever that looks like, I know it'll be good, and there'll be new things to experience and new ways to navigate through the world, depending on where my physical body and my mind are. And maybe I'm meditating in a seated posture more. Right now I'm dancing on a stage with a pole.
Yeah, I want to pick up on something you're saying, because I agree with it, and I've thought about this. It does seem like I was watching Family Feud once, and somebody was like, what's the age where like physically life becomes so much more difficult? I forget the exact question, but the most popular answer was 40. And I was just thinking of how people are pigeonholing themselves. People are basically saying, and this is the way I take it, it's okay to sort of give up a little when you're 40, because everybody does. And maybe, fuck it, I'm just going to eat a little bit more and let go a little bit. I do feel like, of course, there are real things that happen, but you can be conscious and make it more of a priority to take care of your body and your mind, because they're totally related. But a lot of people don't. And I think it's partly because it's just okay to look different and act different at a certain age and, let go. Now, sometimes you don't have a choice. So I definitely don't want to be insensitive to the idea that like sometimes you don't have the privilege to be as conscious as we're talking about. But I think many people do. I mean, the standard of kind of the wealth in the United States is higher than it's ever been. And so I think there's plenty of disposable income to be able to prioritize that, and time, to do that. But I think some people are just okay saying, I'm just going to let go. I don't know why.
Yeah, it goes back to that. For me, it goes back to the book, Goddesses Never Age. And she talks about cultural portals. And just, this happens at 20, and this happens at 30, and this happens at 40. Like, bullshit. Why are we even allowing that to write the script for us? We get to choose. There's a lot of conditioning that we have to rewire, and there's a lot of healing. But just do the work and create your own blueprint. There's no reason why we have to follow along with any of the crap that's being sold to us.
Yeah.
Even though it's been infiltrating for forever. There's no reason to adhere to any of it.
I like your attitude a lot. Yeah, sorry. There's two different things competing for competing to be said because so much is happening in this conversation for me.
Do it
So
all.
okay, yeah, I'll try the first thing. First, I guess I just want to observe that you are you're filled with a spirit of these things are possible, whereas I would say most people I talk to, it's just there's more of a realistic attitude. That is not where you're at. That what you wouldn't call that realistic. You would say that's a pessimistic sort of traditional attitude that's really not serving people unless they want to end up in traditional ways that you see a lot of people get to, where they aren't as fulfilled sexually, they aren't as fulfilled sensually, they're not taking care of their bodies as well. So I just want to point that out, that it's a nice effect, and it's one that's often tough if you don't have a person with your attitude there. If you're not surrounded by that, then it's harder. So I guess you would probably say to seek out people that have something that you want like that, if that's what you want. Um, so that was one thing. The other thing is a question for you. So sometimes on your social media, I'll see the word goddess, and you mentioned a book with the word goddess in it. And I often think, what do men do? Do men have an equivalent? Is there God, stuff going on out there where men can, like, I don't know, feel more natural and appreciated? And it just doesn't feel like it's in the male domain, the types of things that seem to be going on in the goddess world that you occupy. What do you have to say about that, if anything, for men?
That is such a good question. There's not enough honoring of men. There's just, women really form these support groups for each other and like lift each other up. And this whole, I haven't been saying goddess my whole life for sure. It's this new phenomenon, this like, I
Hmm.
don't know. It's gotten bigger, but it felt like just this California,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
women who are buying crystals and like sleeping on sheepskins. Like,
yes,
I'm one of them, so I can say it. But there's, we do talk about the men in our lives and the men that we want, and I have this men's sexuality course coming up, and this term of like knights or warriors or even gods, and that is something that came up a lot with when I started practicing tantra with my teachers Freddie and Elsbeth of Tantra Nova. They during his one-man show, Freddie says, welcome goddesses and gods to start it off, so it is, we're also acknowledging the masculine, you know
hmm,
that fun goddess phrase.
right. Okay,
I
that's
don't say it a lot because I'm not, I'm not speaking to that, but I could start talking about gods more.
well, I think it might be a nice thing eventually. I don't know if that's part of your purpose. Maybe it is, but I find that interesting. I mean, I often think about how women have more access to like supportive type groups and spirituality than men, at least in my life experience in those circles that I'm in. Um, women can be very supportive of each other in groups, and I think that's why you don't hear about gods very much, or whatever the right word would be. You hear about goddess, and when I hear goddess, I think of that's essentially meaning a woman who is honoring another woman fully, who is saying you are more than just a human, there's something especially beautiful about you. That's what I hear when I hear that, and men are just not doing that for each other. um, and I don't just say it jokingly, like, "Oh, we don't have that." Like, I'm a little jealous. Like, that would be nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So, I could throw a million resources out there, but there are a lot of men supporting each other. I don't know why it doesn't seem to be as, it's not in the forefront. It's not as loud. It's not as blatant, but there are, there are so many groups. There's actually one really big group down here in Southern California where I am right now. They do like huge events for men, with 100 plus men that are just like only men there, no women. There's just like brothers supporting each other. I think it's called Sacred Sons. I
Hmm.
might be getting it totally wrong. But yeah, there's men who, like my friend Destin, who's also doing a men's sexuality course coming up. He only works with men. And he does these huge men's groups. And I feel that too. And that's why I am doing a men's training with my girlfriend. Um, but of course, it is beautiful men supporting men, and there is a lot more of that happening right now. And you just have to look for it a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, sounds like
Um,
it.
but it's there. It's definitely there.
Hmm. Um, if men were to do this or seek out a course on men's sexuality, what are the types of things that they would learn there?
A course on men's sexuality.
If that's
Yeah,
what you're referring to, because you,
yeah. A
okay,
lot that we've already spoke about, and I've mentioned, and like the idea of circulating that ejaculatory energy, that orgasmic energy, and having a full body orgasm, and harnessing that that power and that sexual energy, and utilizing that creative life force energy for something other than literally creating a life or having sex or having an orgasm,
mhm,
because that's the same energy that allows you to reach new levels in your business, or whatever creative project you're working on, or just create a new project. That is creative energy. It's very easy to understand and see, because that's how we create life.
mhm,
So really harnessing that energy, and then also relationship dynamics. What is their relationship to the feminine, and um, where did that begin, and how is it with their mother, and how is that influencing their relationship with the females in their lives,
mhm,
or female.
mhm,
Uh, we, my girlfriend and I that are running the course, were even speaking about posture the other day, and how we
mm,
want to really make those subtle things really clear. That when a man is hunched like this, or like closing his heart, and his shoulders are kind of caved in, and um, his posture is not aligned and elevated and open, it's just, it's not attractive, and
mm,
it changes the way that you move through the world and you move through life. Like, you can tell that something is off. you know they're not fully experiencing life. So, pulling the shoulders back, lifting the heart up, aligning the spine, something so simple, that will be mm, shedding some light on. And that's the simple way of putting it, but it goes so much deeper. How you hold yourself.
hmm. Yeah, that sounds like in, just important to hear. It's so simple sounding when you say that. It's like, oh yeah, well, maybe have a little bit more bodily confidence, and um, maybe discipline is a little part of having good posture, and that can make a big difference in terms of attractiveness. Um, it's sort of a different subject, but I became curious because you've continuous. Well, you mentioned polyamory, and kind of different ways of being sexually. Do you believe that all people are bisexual? Start there. No. Okay.
Definitely not. No.
Okay. Can you shed light on generally what you think about people? Are some people just like straight? Some people are, you know, uh, uh, is there more fluidity than people think? um, some people think there's total fluidity, and some people are not thinking about anything but like, I'm a man, I like women, or maybe I'm a man, I like men, or whatever. They're just like, that's the way I am. I'm curious how much fluidity, I guess, you perceive, or if there's anything people may not know about themselves that there could be an area to explore.
That's, you just said it. That's exactly my response. And I do believe that many people, even including myself in some ways, and I feel like I'm pretty expressed and explorative, I believe that there's always more to explore. And I
Hmm.
think I've said that a few times actually in a couple different ways since we've been speaking, but
Hmm.
yeah, there's always more to explore. So if someone feels like they're really set in their ways, then that's fine and enjoy that. Um, but if there's a little tiny bit of light coming in there that says, okay, there's something else that I want to experience. Yeah, we probably have more to explore. There might be something unexpressed there.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to say that's for everyone because we're all completely different. We're shaped by everything that we've experienced in our
Hmm.
environment. And however, there's always more.
Right. Well, I like what you said that there's limits and people don't need to push themselves more than they want to. But what I think I hear you saying is that if you get a clue, an inkling, something you're curious about, maybe you just want to push down the moment you think of it, if it doesn't feel like culturally accepted or something, or didn't earlier in your life, that might be the invitation to explore it, at least to look at it. Maybe you can say, no, I don't like it, but if you find yourself curious or interested or paying attention to something, am I right? Is that how we start to find clues of what to explore?
Well, yeah, it depends. If there's resistance and fear there, then there might be a trauma. There might be something that needs to be healed or looked at because if it's blocking that sexual expression in your life, then it could be blocking a lot of other things because that's your creative life force energy. And if you're scared of that, if there's fear there, then yeah, dig in because you might be able to experience a greater level of being human if you look at it and remove the block there that maybe you don't even know you have, but that can shed some light on it for sure, how what your relationship is to, you know, that sexual exploration, if that makes sense. There's a lot there.
I'm sure there is. Yeah, I'm sure there is. I'm curious personally, like where you are right now in, I guess, partnership. Like, I don't know if you're with anybody right now, and where do you find yourself? Because it's got to be this interesting balance where you teach people about sex. You have a life that is, yeah, actually almost completely professionally dedicated to teaching and enlightening people in a sexual way. Where does that put you in your personal relationships? Does it does it change your personal relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe a lot of a lot of people are teaching what they need to learn themselves.
Huh.
And I can't say that I'm in a perfect position in my own intimate relationships.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't claim to be an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I do have some experience. And a lot of people in my circle, in my immediate circle, my community, whatever, what have you, um, and also my age haven't been in a committed relationship for a decade or more. Um, so I definitely do have some experience in that way because it was not just a, you know, mundane sort of experience. We were digging, we were exploring, we were experiencing, we were constantly just searching and finding new ways to interact and communicate. So we learned a lot. It was an incredible educational process. uh, in that way, I do believe I have something to offer. Though I am at this current moment in an experience of being with myself and dating myself and learning what it is to really be my own partner and
Mhm.
have everything I need within myself so that when I am in a relationship, I don't need anything from
Mhm.
that other person because I really do believe that's the way, at least from my experience, to approach a relationship and to enter a relationship is to be fully whole within yourself and not need anything from anyone else, but to have the desire to amplify the pleasure of life by sharing it with somebody else.
Mm. I would alter that a little bit. I like what you're saying, but I feel like we all need other people. But I think what I would say, because I get what you're saying totally, and I like the sentiment when people have said things like that in my life, that you're comfortable with the relationships that you have, including the one with yourself, which is obviously the most important, but you're comfortable with your family and friend relationships, and you're doing well on your own, and you know who you are. And that feels like a very powerful way to enter a relationship, as opposed to going in really needing someone to make up for something that is a hole in you that is missing. Um, or yeah, needing someone to compensate for something you don't have in some way. I feel like that's how you really get into trouble, and how it's almost a foregone conclusion the relationship won't work, as if you're treating them as a substitute for something you didn't get. And I think that's very common.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking, if I want to get really just real and unfiltered, it's, I think in some ways I'm probably a recovering codependent. So I think I'm speaking more about codependency than anything.
Mm, yes, absolutely. As so many people would identify that way. But you're okay, but you're saying for you and for anyone that is codependent or has been codependent, you need time to experience yourself, get to know yourself, work out the problems that you face day to day. Like that, you need to get used to that experience before you can then almost give yourself the easy way out if you hadn't done the work by being with someone else.
Yeah. And now it's time to do the work of being on my own and enjoying it fully. Even
Yeah.
though I love being in partnership, and it has to be very specific, however, which we all know. Uh,
Yes.
Can't be just anyone.
um, cool. So we're basically at the end of our time, but before we go, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you think anyone that watches this should know?
Yeah, I'm just want to invite everybody to explore more of their sensuality and maybe even sexuality, but start with just your own experiencing pleasure on your own. It's like chew slower and smell your food more, and put on more lotion and oil and touch yourself more. And I don't mean just there, like everywhere.
I absolutely love what you're saying, and that's another thing I've learned from you over the years, and it again ties so much into presence. There's so much presence. There's pleasure, and then there's also spirituality, and feeling really in touch with why you're here, or at least feeling comfortable with being here, from enjoying the many great things that are available to us, from simple breathing to the foods around us, to what it could mean to be in partnership with someone, and like how cool it is that we have that in front of us, and the opportunity to do that when we're in a relationship, or even not. So cool. Well, it's always very inspiring to speak with you. So thank you for taking the time today and dialoguing with me.